Hello friends, welcome back to our channel DS Tech Mirror. Topic for today video is Power Apps Model Driven Apps. With this video, we are starting a new tutorial on model driven apps and this is part 1. In this, we are going to cover few basic important concepts of model driven app, or I should say this is the introductory video about model driven apps. In this tutorial, I am going to cover model driven apps from scratch to the advanced level in the similar fashion as I covered SPFX tutorial. So let's get started. Before covering the model driven apps, I assume that all of you must be aware that we can create three components in Power Apps. One is Canvas app, second model driven apps, and third is the portals. Canvas app I have already covered in my channel. Now I will be covering the model driven apps. So first question is, what are model driven apps? Model driven apps are not pixel perfect apps like Canvas app. So what do we mean by this statement? We mean is like when we create Canvas app, in Canvas app we have full control over the UI. We can drag drop all the different controls on my app. There are multiple screens in my app. We can design the UI, we can decide the color, we can decide the font size. So we have complete control over the UI of the Canvas app as well as the functionality. Whereas model driven apps are backed by data. They are not the purpose of model driven app is not to create some beautiful picture perfect apps, not at all. So model driven apps are backed by data. Having said that, means when we have a data at the back end, and based on that data, if I want to create any app, so that will come under the category of the model driven apps, and this data is stored in the CDS, or now as Microsoft has renamed it, Dataverse. So data of the model driven apps are stored in the Dataverse. So all these, I'm assuming all these are the new concepts or the new words which you must be hearing, like Dataverse, CDS. So don't worry, I will be covering each and everything in detail throughout the course of this tutorial. So before proceeding further, let me show you what is model driven app over the in the real case scenario and how it is different from the Canvas app, and then we will proceed further. So friends, this is how my model driven app looks like. So over here you can see this is one model driven app called Fundraiser. This is available as a template provided by Microsoft. When you will create any app, this is one of the template which is available. So throughout this tutorial I will be creating this Fundraiser app from scratch from the beginning, and then we will cover all the concepts of the model driven app through this Fundraiser demo. And if there is anything which cannot be covered through this demo, I will cover it separately. My main focus of this tutorial, of creating this tutorial, is I will be covering from A to Z of the model driven apps. So over here you can see this is dashboard, and over here you can see active fundraiser, all donations awaiting payment. So this is the data. This is the data, and where this data is stored in Dataverse. So Dataverse, I will come to Dataverse at a later point. If I go to if I click on this Fundraiser, I've got a different view over here. I can see there are multiple views. This is active fundraiser, this is inactive fundraiser, this is a table. There are different types of column, name. If I click on this, let's say storm relief, so I can see this is a storm relief. This is a form. So this is a form in model driven apps, and these are different tabs. So at this point of time, don't get confused about what I'm talking about, these forms, these views, because I will be covering each topic separately. I just want to show you this is how my model driven app will look like and how it is different from the Canvas app. On the other hand, if I open this tab, help desk, so this is my Canvas app. Over here you can see I have created this screen. There are these two buttons. The layout, the UI is in complete control, is completely under my control how I want to design my Canvas app. But the UI of the model driven app will more or less look like the same. Only the functionality, only the forms, views would be different, but UI would be the same. On the other hand, every UI every app can have a different UI while we create a Canvas app. So this is just the basic difference between the Canvas app and the model driven app. Second is, in Canvas app, at the background, I can have multiple data sources. I can store my data in Dataverse. I can store my data in SharePoint, in Oracle, SQL, in other multiple data sources. But the data of the model driven app can only be stored in the Dataverse. You will find, if you will go over the internet, you will also find this CDS, Common Data Service. So they both are same. Earlier Microsoft is naming it as CDS. Now it has been renamed as Dataverse. So I'll go back to my PPT. So if I come again over here, model driven apps are not pixel perfect apps. Now you must have understood this line. These are data driven apps driven by data. And unlike Canvas app development, where the designer has complete control over app layout, with model driven app, much of the layout is predefined. So layout is predefined. Second point is, model driven apps focus on adding components such as form, views, charts, tables using an app designer tool. So when we will start creating our this model driven app, fundraiser app, so we will be using this app designer tool. So I will be covering this, and these are the different components of the model driven apps. So if I'll go back again, this is form, then views to, this is just a few. There are other many more multiple components, and we will be covering all the components in this tutorial. Model driven apps are well suited for data driven processes. So this I have already covered. So if I want to create a help desk system, so in that my model driven app is not, I cannot choose model driven app. For that, Canvas app is well suited. But if there is a scenario where onboarding of the new employees or sales process or fundraiser, which I have just showed you, in these scenarios, model driven apps are well suited. In model driven apps, at the backend we have Dataverse. Without Dataverse, we cannot create model driven apps. So out of all these points, this is the most important point, and this could be one of the interview question as well if you are at a very basic level. So just keep in mind all these points. This is just a very introductory concepts of the model driven apps, just to hit the ground. These are the points. Moving on to the next, what are the benefits of the model driven apps? So these are the few benefits. The most important benefit of the model driven apps is they are responsive automatically, because layout is predefined. We can't control layout much, so they are responsive automatically. They are supporting across all the devices, and you don't have to do anything extra or any piece of extra code you don't have to write to make it responsive. That is a very very important concept, I should say, very strong concepts of the model driven app. So if you are creating a model driven app, it will support across all the mobile devices, your laptops, your desktops. Second is, at the backend for the model driven apps, we have Dataverse. Now Dataverse supports a strong and very flexible data model. If we talk about security, if we talk about data models, so what are data models, I will cover in my future videos. So if I have to cover very basic concepts, just to give you a hint about Dataverse is a very strong security. It is again it is at the back end, so Microsoft is taking care about the Dataverse, so you don't have to worry about your database. Microsoft will keep on working on it to improve new features. You have to just worry about your data, how you are storing your data in the Dataverse, how many, because this is a Dataverse, and in Dataverse you will be creating various tables. So how you are creating your tables, how many columns, how views you are creating, how your forms are looking like, what are the relationships between your tables, then the security of your tables, security of data in your tables. So all these things you have to worry about. And all this is a very low code apps. Model driven apps are low code apps. They are integrated with Office 365. They are part of Power Platform. Integration with Canvas app. This is a feature which is in preview mode now. So for now, I am not covering it. But during the course of this tutorial, if this feature is live, so I will be definitely covering it, or whenever it is available. This is extensible with code, that also we will C. Now, at a very high level, what all I'm going to cover in this tutorial is all these points, because these are the various components. If I have to break down my model driven app into different components or into different points, whichever way you want to say, it will result into these concepts. First is the modeling business data. In bracket I've written dataverse. That means your data. In simple words, it's your data. Second is the business processes. So there are various business process you want to perform over your data. For example, the way any restrictions you want to put on the end users, like what kind of data they enter into your tables, any kind of validations, any processes that we will see. Then composing your apps using your Power App Designer, how you will create your app, your security rules, sharing your app, and the demo. So these points I will be covering in this entire tutorial, but these are at a very high level. There will be much more in this tutorial. Now, if I have to give you a very basic idea, so what all we have, like how we are going to create model driven apps. So I will be creating data, or I will be adding data into the Dataverse. So once my data is ready, then I will create a model driven apps. Then I have the model driven apps with me. Then inside the model driven apps or inside the Dataverse, I will be creating views, forms, and then my app should look like this. Dashboard, this is one table, another table, like this it should look like. So again, I will say, just don't get confused. You will, get very comfortable while, I will cover different topics. Moving on to the next, creating a model driven app, or before even starting with any of the concepts of the model driven app or Dataverse, first thing which you have to create is to create a new environment. So what do you mean by environment? So over here, let's go to the Power Apps. So this is my Power Apps. In Power Apps, by default, you must be having one environment. So whenever we get the Power App license, by default we get one environment. We cannot delete that environment. We cannot backup that environment. We cannot do a backup and restore on that particular environment. This is one thing. So whenever you are doing any development, you are creating any new app, whether it is Canvas app or model driven app, it is a very good practice or Microsoft recommended practice that you create a new environment. This is one thing. Another is why you want to create a new environment. So what you can do, for example, like you can have different environment for the development, different environment for the UAT, different environment for the production, or there could be different environment for different departments in your organization, and you can completely control one environment, or completely isolate one environment for the other. So both from the security perspective, both from the development perspective, we should consider creating different environments. Okay, now in the Power App we have default environment, but for app development we should create a new environment. There can be different environment for development, UAT, and testing. So this I have covered. We can easily move our customization from one environment to another with the help of solutions. So this I will cover. So if I'm having one development environment and then I'm having another production environment, and if I want to move my customization from one environment to another, how we are going to do that, this I will cover. Okay, so now we will see how to create a new environment. So friends, over here I have a trial environment. In trial environment I can only create one environment, and that is also valid for 30 days. It's a trial based and it is valid for 30 days. After that all the data will be erased. So I have already created an environment with me called dstechmirror. So this is my environment. Okay, so what I will do, I will show you how to create a new environment, but I cannot perform all the steps. So I am attaching all the snapshots, so that if you are creating a new environment, so you can, if you have any doubt, you can refer these snapshots over here. So two snapshots are there. This is first and this is second. So first let's create a new environment over here. So how you are going to create a new environment? You will click over here. you will go to the admin center. This is the Power Platform admin center, and over here, once you land onto this Power Platform admin center, at the top over here you can see new. Just click on this new and a panel will open for the new environment. Over here you can select your environment name. For example, I will select uh, model driven apps tutorial. Okay, then there are different types of environment. One is the production environment. So if you are having a licensed version of the Office 365, then you should create this production environment. Other two are this trial subscription based and the sandbox based. So I'm assuming that most of you, if you are learning this model driven apps, you must be having this trial Office 365 developer trials. So you can select this trial over here. So I will be covering these different types of environment: sandbox, trial, production. So you can select this trial. Next is the region. So just select your particular region where you are belonging, because whenever you will create your app, so Microsoft will divert your traffic to the region where you have selected over here for the environment. So it will give you better bandwidth, better performance of your app. Purpose, this is an optional. Now the main important thing is create a database for this environment. So just select it yes, and then it will create a Dataverse database for you. So if I go over here, same thing I have attached in my screenshot when I created this DS Tech Mirror. So I selected DS Tech Mirror as the name, trial, India default, and create a database. If I go to next, then over here I have to select the language. URL, I can leave it. A unique domain name will be generated. Click here to enter a custom domain. If you want to choose any URL over here, then you can enter over here. So if you want to select anything, for example, if I say DS Tech Mirror, but it won't let me. Why? Because we are working with the trial environment. So if I go to the second snapshot, so I didn't take any action over here. Currency INR, enable dynamic 365 apps. So I said no, because they are only available for the production environment. Deploy sample apps and data, I said yes. And then security group, I just restrict environment access to people in the security group. So for now I didn't I didn't select any of the security group, and then I clicked on sorry. So that's it. After that I clicked on save. Now after that you will click on save. For me it will give me an error over here, because it will say you have reached the limit of one trial environment. Create a production environment to continue. So I cannot create any more environment. So for this purpose I have attached this snapshot over here. So you can refer this snapshot for the values if you have any doubt. So once you click on save, so an environment will get created over here for you, and then you can go back to your Power Apps, refresh your screen, and from here you can select the environment. If I go to default environment, so the things would be different for me. If I go to solutions over here, I will cover solutions, just don't worry about that, I will cover solutions. But you can see there are different things over here in solutions: the flow approvals, Power Apps checker base. And if I go to my DS Tech Mirror, if I go to solutions again, so you can see different data or different components in my solutions, like asset checkout app, innovation challenge app, fundraiser app, learn model driven app. So this way I want to show you that whatever development you will do in one environment will be isolated from another environment. So this is the concept of the environment at a very high level. So friends, these are few other points related to environment which few have already covered. Just want to add this to the slide, and if I get any other information I will keep on adding to the slide and I will present it in front of you. So I have added these 2 points. Like over here, environment is a space to store, manage and share your organization business data apps, because environment, as I said, like an organization can have different environments. based on their needs, whether it is based on their department, whether development environment, and any other scenario based on security. So they can have different environment, and it's a space to store and manage your data, business data, your apps, your flow, your gateways, all that will segregate separately. Every environment can have 0 or 1 Dataverse database. So this is an important point. It is a conceptual question. So every environment can have 0 or maximum 1 Microsoft Dataverse database. So I just want to add these 2 points before I close today's video. So guys, thank you for watching today's video. If you like this video, please like and share the video and subscribe to the channel to get notification for our upcoming videos. If you have any doubts, you can reach out to us through our official email ID, contactdstechmirror@gmail.com, or through YouTube comments. I have created a group over Facebook called Modern SharePoint. You can join that group and we can collaborate over there. Also, this is my Twitter handle. You can follow me on Twitter to get all the updates from the Office 365 world. Thank you. Much love. Keep learning.